The problems persist, the injustices as I refer to them, and I describe problems of process in terms of the collective bargaining process. But the purpose of interfering on the part of the cabinet is not just for the sake of it, but for the particular purpose of depressing the levels of compensation in the public sector. That is what they're really ultimately about. So contrary to the public claims, as they made them some months ago, that enterprise is going to be allowed to negotiate on the basis of the peculiar abilities to meet the claims of workers. That is not happening at the National Insurance Board. All they are concerned about is across the board in the public sector, that is, across the board depression of compensation levels, depression of costs, as they see it. And that is what underpins our experience in the negotiations. That is why I say the negotiations, one, they have been a farce, and two, to the extent that they have been farcical in the sense of no real collective bargaining taking place, they have been where the authorities are concerned are exercising the pursuit of injustice, of economic injustice against the workers.
Well stated, Mr. Regis, and it's of great concern indeed. And from what you shared with me earlier today, you said there's going to be some picketing being done today.
Oh yes, we have been picketing for several weeks, and there is expected to be an escalation of sorts in picketing this week. And contributing to that, talk about the injustices, the economic injustice arising out of what I might describe as, for want of a better way of expressing it, the whole impropriety of process. But the situation is actually degenerating. Very recently, about a week ago roughly, some 10 or 11 employees were suspended. And we note that the majority of those who were suspended are the people who are more regularly seen at the picket line. So it's clear to us that vindictiveness is the driving motivation behind these suspensions. The suspensions have been for rather nebulous reasons. When I look at a letter of suspension, one could hardly understand what is the allegation being made against the people. And they have been suspended pending the outcome of our inquiry. Right? So that picket today, pickets would normally have continued in furtherance of our purposes in the negotiations. And indeed, that continues to be one of the reasons, in fact, perhaps the major reason driving the picket. But adding to it, because what we have is an accumulation of injustice as time passes, a rolling of one into the other, a heaping of one injustice upon the next, right? So what is happening today is that you have people who had not been coming out before, but who outraged at the victimization of their colleagues.
When you say coming out to
To the
picket.
picket, yes, right? For example, last Friday, one would normally expect, in my own experience at least, as negotiations go on, there's a tendency to tire. And one would observe that reflected in a falling off in the numbers of people who might participate in pickets. On the contrary, what we had after several weeks, if not months of picketing occurring last Friday, was the numbers on the picket line rising to an unprecedented level. We're talking about a count made of 120
And how
persons.
many employees are there in N.I.B?
There are 530 odd employees, right? So 120 is quite a significant number that would mark the percentage.
Absolutely.
And indeed, to appreciate the significance of that number 120 is to know that the National Insurance Board's operations are not concentrated in Port-of-Spain, but actually distributed around the country, as it includes Tobago, right? So that we're talking about pretty much a fraction of that 520 people being located in the vicinity of in this northwestern area, right? And they are the people who you would find really represented on the picket
Continue.
line. Yeah, continue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so what I sought to do was to give the picture that would explain the significance of 120 as a percentage. In other words, I'm suggesting that if that 530 people were located basically in the northwest region, we would have seen tremendously more than 120. We would have seen tremendously more than the fifth or quarter of the staff I referred to. We may very well have seen more than half of the organization outside there. And outside there, where outside the picket was held at the premises, the office premises, just outside the premises of BPTT headquarters at Queens Park West.
Hmm.
The site of picket chosen was because of the fact that the chairman of the National Insurance Board, Ravi Ramuta, he works there. And we consider the suspensions to be something that he must be held personally accountable for. Right? Indeed, our suspicion is that he may very well have been the driving force behind the suspensions as the chairman of the organization.
So would you say that, Mr. Regis, there's an active or there's a course of action to smother the voice or the voices of the people who are displeased with some of the events as they are unfolding within the workplace
Most
by
definitely.
suspending, by making an example, using these people as an example, for example, to say, be quiet, otherwise this is what could happen.
Most
So
definitely.
these persons
Definitely.
who have been suspended, then are they being paid whilst they're suspended? Three quarter.
They are receiving three-quarters of their salary.
We've got another NIB person who has joined us. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning to the listening public out there. Constance Hercules, Chairman of the National Insurance Board of Trinidad and Tobago PSC section.
Welcome back, Constance.
Thank you.
Constance was here as well in the last interview that we did, and we're happy that you all have joined us again to update the public as to what is happening in terms of negotiations and whether or not there's any progress, if there's no progress, if there's retro progress, so to say. But in any event, we're glad that you're here to educate the public. I feel very strongly that it's important for us to continue to speak. It's important for us to continue to have a voice to share with the public and globally, because we are global. The fact that we're on the internet means that globally we're being seen, we're being heard. So there's not only public awareness within our country of Trinidad and Tobago, but there's also global awareness as to what's happening in this country and some of the grievances that some people have within their places, various places of employment. So we thank you, Mr. Regis, for expressing yourself so well, articulating exactly how you feel about what's happening. I would like to ask Mr. Richard Sedeno to take the floor at this point and pick up the reins and share with us some of the ongoing
Mhm.
issues and where things stand now as compared to where they were the last time that you all were here.
Okay, hi, good morning once again. While Tehran's concentrated more on the current state of the negotiations, I'd just like to give a brief synopsis of reason why we are having such strong pickets and letting our presence and for our feelings be known on the public domain. Basically, is that even though we are in 2012, we are still on 2007 salaries. the employees who are very diligent and hardworking employees and who care about serving the public because we are a social security organization. We work under very trying and poor working conditions. We have instances of service centers that when employees come to work, they may encounter snakes in the filing room. We have where carpets get wet from rain, from leakages and so forth. They're very terrible smell. The AC is not working. Computerized systems where we can't work at our premium. And as well, we'll like to again stress, as Terry mentioned earlier, the NIB's ability to pay, which was stated by our Prime Minister, where she said that each entity should negotiate on the company's ability to pay. And we all know NIB is a very large corporation financially, where we have over $21 billion in assets. So it easily seen that NIB has the ability to pay their employees. Also, we are stressing on having a comparability of salaries with other members of the state sector, right? Because a clerk in NIB is a clerk in TSCT. There's no difference. In fact, I'll even go so far as to say our CSRs, our wider range of job responsibilities than just a cashier in TSCT who is just collecting money to pay a bill. Because when the CSR have the claims, you have to go all the different benefit payments and so forth. So we have a larger responsibility for our CSRs than the other sectors. And in getting a comparability of salary compared to those high paid state sectors, we also have a sustainability of our real income because, as we know, because of China coming into the world market and so forth, the price of items have skyrocketed. Food items have skyrocketed because of the increased demand of that 3 billion strong country that wasn't there previously. So, because of that increase in food inflation, it's much harder, especially living on 2007 salaries. So for us employees to be facing the groceries where we have to pick and choose what you go to the counter with, so you won't be embarrassed when we, we overload our carts. Right, so that is just a background of the reasons why we are so strong and vehement in the goals that we want to achieve. Right, and then we face this management who, as Terence says, is totally inept, who are constrained by the cabinet, where they can't negotiate in good faith and and conduct negotiations as they should be. And then we have threats of breakdown, which I'm sure Terry would like to elaborate on because that is something he didn't mention as yet. But that's the basis of it. That it is a steep hill we are facing, but we are strong. The members of the employees of the National Insurance Board are firmly behind us. As Terry mentioned, there has been a increase in the level of the activity shown by the employees because it's not fair. What they're offering us is totally unfair and inadequate to meet the current needs of our financial needs. Terry.
And I thank you for sharing that, Richard Sidene. And Constance Hercules, would you like to share what has happened since the last time you were here with us to today?
I believe that Terry and Richard, having listened to Richard and getting the tail end of Terry, I would like to believe that they brought all the information that is necessary with regard to that period. However, I would like to continue from where Richard left off as it relates to our current um, working conditions. I consider this very important in order for even us to understand why we are pushing our needs as being necessary, why we believe that we shouldn't just die and roll over or
Correct.
fall down and roll over, whichever way they want to put it. Now, as Richard said, we are in a social security environment. And our parents taught us that charity begins at home. So we believe that our employer should at least ensure that that social consciousness be practiced and within the organization. If we look at all that is written about the National Insurance Board, one would believe that it is being practiced. But being an employee, we can say quite clearly that it is not. And when Richard described and when all of us describe our employer as being inept, we have all reason to believe that because having set all these parameters, all these guidelines, all these procedures in place, this is the same employer who ignore these guidelines and these procedures. Their whole basis is just getting the job done so that they would look good to get to keep their position and to be considered as worthy of any upward mobility, be it salary or even position. Whereas we, the ones who are the workers, because that's what we are described as, we are the workers, like the workers in the bee nest.
Yes, the
So
worker
you are
bees.
right. So we must shut up.
The lower class
The lower
workers.
class, shut up. Work in fear. So when they saw how these bees suddenly realized their worth and decided no more will we be kept down, we decided to stand up and talk. We continue working, but we are talking. This is why the suspension came about, to inculcate that fear that for years have been driving us to keep quiet. And they realize, here what? This thing getting out of our control. This is the only way to bring it back. And they may have succeeded minimally, but that behavior at BP, I am sure will have proven to them that they are not successful. And what is going to continue happening will let them know that we are no longer the
The
hardworking,
mi-
mistreated workers. We are the hardworking workers who know our rights.
All right, thank you for sharing, Miss Hercules. We're going to go to break. We're going to take a little break and then we're going to come right back. And thank you all for sharing. We'll be right back on PSA Radio on radio.psatt.org. Keep it locked.
Hi, I'm Beverly King, representing Come Talk International, which is an educational counseling and referral organization targeting adolescents, young persons, and those who are infected with HIV. And you are tuning to PSA Radio.
Don't know much about love, but I know about me. And I know I'm crazy feeling you right now. Don't know if it's love, but I'll tell you one thing. It's something amazing. If anybody ever told me about it, I would've told them they was out of their mind. Since I met you, there just ain't no way around it. I found love. You're like the first best thing in my life. Feels like I died and went to heaven inside. You're like the very best thing I can't deny. When I look in your eyes, you take my heart to a zone, something like I never known. Go places I never gone or didn't care about before. You're like the very best thing, like finding love the very first time. Ain't nothing like it, you know. Can't really fake it, oh no. The feeling's priceless. It's like having a million diamonds or more. Once in a lifetime thing that doesn't happen to me. What are the chances? If anybody